So today we're going to be completing the book review of Never Split the Difference by Voss, and guess what? I will also be sharing my personal story on the successful application of these tips. Okay, there you have it. Those are the 12 incredible tips. Hi there family and friends, welcome back to the channel. My name is Apsara, I'm from UK and I'm currently living in USA. In this channel we look at tools and tips that help us live happier, healthier and more productive lives. So today we're going to be completing the book review of Never Split the Difference by Voss. If you haven't watched the first part of this video, make sure you do that because there I cover the top 6 negotiation tips. I will link the video over here. And this video is going to have the rest of the 6 tips, which is quite an advanced technique. And I will also be sharing my personal story on the successful application of these tips. So do stick around till the end for that. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do that and hit the notification bell so you won't miss a thing. Tip number 7 is the illusion of control. So what Voss suggests is to make sure your counterpart feels like they are in control of the conversation. How can you do that? By asking the question how. So when you ask how, your counterpart will begin to answer your how, and when they do that, they're engaging in the conversation, but they're a little bit off balance. Many times while answering your how, they're often finding your solution for you, so they end up bidding against themselves. So an example from the book was a lady who was working as a freelancer, as a consultant for a company. So life was good, she was working for them, she was getting paid, etc. Suddenly the company stopped paying her because there was issues with their accounts, they didn't have enough money, business wasn't doing well, and she found herself working for free for 3 solid months. And every time she asked for money, there was some excuse or the other. Then came a situation where the company offered her another 3 months of contract, and she did want the contract because she needed the job, but she wasn't comfortable to say, I'm not going to work for you unless you pay me. So she ended up going to Voss's talk, and the suggestion was that she went to her boss, had a nice chat, did the mirroring, did the labeling, and in the end she ended up asking her boss, how she was supposed to continue working without money. And the boss quickly came into terms that it wasn't okay, so they ended up paying her for her last 3 months and the new contract within 48 hours. And all she did was ask the question how, which was her disagreeing without being disagreeable. Tip number 8 is negotiating with a no in mind. Many of us are hardwired to get to a yes at the early stages of negotiation. For example, we'd usually go to somewhere and say, is this in discount? And we want to hear yes. So Voss suggests completely against that. He suggests that you need to get to a no first, because when you get a yes, it could be any type of the 3 yeses. So yes can have 3 different meanings. So the first one is counterfeit, second one is the confirmation, and the third one is commitment. So the counterfeit yes is, for example, if someone knocks on your door, a salesman, and says, hey, do you drink water? What are you going to say? You're going to say yes, but you're going to say yes with a lot of doubt, with a lot of defensiveness and a lot of distrust. So that's the counterfeit yes. The second yes is the confirmation yes, which is just saying yes for the sake of it. There's no promise behind it. So for example, another salesman, or let's say somebody from the church, rings your doorbell and says, oh, we'd love to visit you in church tomorrow. Will you come? You say yes, but you have no intentions of going. So that's the second part, which is the confirmation. The third is the commitment yes. That's what you want to hear and that's what you want to get to. That commitment yes leads to an action. So whenever they say yes, they act accordingly. So when we are negotiating, and if we're trying to get to a yes in the early stages, you could be hit by any 3 of these, and you don't want to take your chances. You can go for a no, because that makes them feel powerful, that makes them feel like they're in control and they're in charge of that conversation. Tip number 9 is accusation audit. It is just acknowledging objection up front. So you are neutralizing the negative and reinforcing the positive. For example, if you have some bad news, you want to say that right at the beginning, so it diffuses the tension. For example, I'm going to use something about my life. It's something I used a lot with my mom. So back home when I was living with my mom, she would sometimes ask me to do the laundry or something. and she'd come back home and I wouldn't have done it. So first thing I would do is when I opened the door, I'd say, "Mom, sorry, I wasn't able to do it." So that would be the first thing she'd hear, which made her not as angry as she would have been if she'd come in, went to check the laundry and it wasn't done. Tip number 10 is deadlines. Make sure time is your ally, because when we are hit with a deadline, it is our natural tendency to rush things and do impulsive things against our best interest. An example from the book I remember is a man called Cohen who was traveling to Japan for a 7-day business trip. So when he landed, he was greeted by his Japanese colleagues. They asked him how long he was staying for. He said 7 days. And in that 7 days, all they did was go out, have fun, go to parties, go sightseeing, anything but work. And only on his way back to the airport, in the car, is where they actually talked work, and that is where he signed the deal. So when he came back, he kind of realized that he may have made a deal that wasn't completely on his best interest. When you're hit with a deadline, make sure you know what's happening to you and try to fight that urge of rushing things. Or you can use deadlines or give deadlines to someone if you want to squeeze out a good deal for yourself. Tip number 11 is numbers. Numbers are a big part of negotiation. There are 3 quick tips we can use when we're dealing with numbers. Tip number 1, never be the first person to say a number, whether it is for salary or you're deciding on the price of the house, etc. Make sure you're not the first one saying the number. Tip number 2, if you really push to give a number and you find yourself in a situation where you have to say out the numbers, make sure you use a range with a high and a low and a gap in the middle. Tip number 3, use odd numbers. When you use odd numbers, it sounds more matter-of-fact-ish. It sounds like you've done the maths, you know exactly what you want, and you are committed to that number. So for example, if I was to sell you this microphone and I'm going to say the price is about $50, you're going to want to try and bring it down because that's a round number. But if I said to you that it is 53.68, it sounds more of a matter-of-factish numbers. It sounds like I've done the maths and I know exactly how much I want and I'm not going to budge. So use odd numbers. Tip number 12 is a very powerful word in negotiation called fair. Have you ever been accused of not being fair? What does that do to you? So when someone accuses you of not being fair, or when you accuse someone of not being fair, what that does to that person's brain is makes their guard go up. They get all defensive, they stop listening, they don't hear you out. All they're going to want to do is prove a point and say why they think they're being fair. They're going to block out all your chances of good negotiation. So never accuse somebody of not being fair. And a good case is when you want to build trust with your counterpart, you can say, "I'm going to try my very best to be fair with you, and please stop me if at any point you're being unfair." So what that does is you automatically feel this person is going to do everything good by the books. You give them your trust and you believe anything they say. Okay, so that's 12 brilliant tips from the book. I hope you enjoyed that. I have read this book twice. As I told you, I've read it cover to cover. I use these tips almost on a daily basis now.
I've used it to ask for a job, to get a raise, and I think the biggest success I've seen was, I have to thank my dad on this one as well. He helped me a great deal. So when I was buying my first property, I managed to bring the price down by a nice 35k. So that was a big win. I still remember to this day the amount of energy my dad and I put on talking to the real estate agent. Yeah, it was a really great experience. But all of these are just stories to you. And I started thinking about an experience that I could share that I had any evidence for. And luckily, I found one. So let's get to it.
And now I'm going to share my personal story about a successful negotiation I executed over email. So luckily, I have examples. Let me get to the background story of how this negotiation came about. I missed my flight. When I was traveling to US, I unfortunately missed my flight, but I wasn't late. I was on time by 4 whole minutes. It just so happened that the airline shut their door 4 minutes earlier and took off early as well. So when I had that information and I'd read this book, I was obviously going to try these techniques out. So you will see in this example, I obviously write my first query. I obviously tell them about my situation on this email. They replied to me. I've hidden out all the personal details, so you won't see any names, and I won't be saying what airlines as well. But here you can see they reached out to me to say, give me further details and my ticket number, etc. I went up and I gave them my details. So, hi XYZ, I thank you for your time. This is my booking, and I've highlighted this in yellow. So as you can see, I have said, I appreciate it is my responsibility to manage time, blah 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 blah. What I've done here is use the accusation audit. Before they could say to me, you have to be half an hour early at the gate, not 4 minutes early. I said it myself. So this is an accusation technique I used. And to that, I got a response from the airline. They gave me a two-part offer. So they gave me either you can have 50,000 travel airline miles, or you could have, however, if you still use monetary compensation, you can see over here, they offered me 600 euros. So it was going to be this or that. So using another technique from the book, never accept the first offer, I went back and I said, it seems as though you truly do care about passengers choosing XYZ airlines. So I'm using the labeling technique here. And I also said I was grateful for that offer, obviously. Then I said, how am I supposed to accept this? That is a technique we visited earlier, the illusion of control. So I asked the airline person to say, how can I accept it when I had to spend so and so for a hotel, etc., etc. And then I stated what I wanted. I said I would like 50,000 miles and the 600 euros. And guess what? I got both of them. As you can see, thank you for follow-up, give me your bank details, and I will transfer the 50,000 miles. So that was a successful negotiation. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my book review and learned some tips on negotiation. Make sure you read the whole book. I highly recommend it. I'll put a link down if you want to buy the book. I've also written a book summary, so if you want to read in further detail, you can find it in my website below. And I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please do leave a comment below about how you found it. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you won't miss a thing from me. Until next time, see you in the next video.